This month's podcast episodes are proudly sponsored by my own book, Bring Your Product Idea to Life. Have you ever had a great idea for a product? Or does creating a product to sell appeal to you? Where do you begin? How do you come up with a product idea? And if you have an idea, how do you know if it's even viable? In Bring Your Product Idea to Life, I take you through the process of creating your product step by step. From developing your product idea to finding suppliers and launching your product, we cover it all. The book includes advice on how to price your product, where to sell it, and how to find out if anyone will actually buy it. Designed to help you make real progress, Bring Your Product Idea to Life is both practical and motivational. Every chapter includes clear action steps so you know exactly what to do and when. This isn't just a book for reading, this is a book for doing. Bring Your Product Idea to Life is available via Amazon, on my website, and linked in the show notes for this episode. Welcome to the Bring Your Product Idea to Life podcast. This is the podcast for you if you're getting started selling products or if you'd like to create your own product to sell. I'm Vicky Weinberg, a product creation coach and Amazon expert. Every week, I share friendly, practical advice as well as inspirational stories from small businesses. Let's get started. Hi, so today on the podcast, I've been speaking to Michelle Ferron. Michelle is the founder of Once Upon a Tuesday, a female-led brand and B Corp that creates stationery for people who want to organise in all areas of life in style. From design-led annual calendars to diaries, weekly planners and notebooks, printed in England and created in a sustainably conscious and ethical way. I had a great chat with Michelle. Of course, I wanted to know what it meant to be a B Corp and how you become one. That was one of my top questions to ask her. But we also spoke a lot about growing a brand and particularly growing a team. Michelle mentioned early on in our interview that she has a team of 8 now, and I was really intrigued to find out about how to know when to hire someone, what kind of things to hire people in to do, and all aspects really of hiring and managing a growing team. And if that's something you've been thinking about or have on your plans for the future, I think you'll find that particularly interesting. So I would love now to introduce you to Michelle. So hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Vicky, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Can we start with you please give an introduction to yourself, your business and what you sell?
Definitely. So I'm Michelle and I run a small stationery brand called Once Upon a Tuesday. And we specialize in products like calendars, planners, anything really to stay organized at home or at work.
Amazing. Thank you. So can you tell me how, why and when you started Once Upon a Tuesday?
Yeah, so we are one of the lockdown stories, 2020. I lost a bunch of my clients and wanted to do something. And I was learning to design. I've always worked kind of designing in marketing, but never really did it properly. So I was learning the Adobe Suite, Illustrator, and I designed a birthday calendar because I couldn't find one that I liked. And then I printed 10 at a printer down the road just so I could get the price down and just for a bit of fun. And I popped them on Etsy and I sold 7 overnight. So I was like, whoa, what's this? And then so I designed a few more calendars. And later in the year, when I designed an annual 2021 calendar, Etsy featured it in their global newsletter. And we just sold thousands and thousands of the thing. And we were just stuffing envelopes. And yeah, it was kind of an accidental business startup. But once that happened, we knew it had legs. So then started taking it more seriously and eventually phased out the clients and full-time focus on this.
Oh, that's amazing. That's really... Yeah, I'm just thinking to put them on Etsy and then for them just to sell like that. I guess
I know it was really unexpected. Yeah, and I've worked in e-commerce and I never really took Etsy seriously as a platform. But honestly, it's brilliant, and we still sell on there now, sort of nearly 4 years on.
That's amazing. So let's talk a little bit about sort of going from putting a few products on Etsy, that selling, and then sort of expanding and growing a business. Can you talk us through that a bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot growing a business. We're now a team of 8. So we've expanded a lot in the last few years, which is super exciting. But I think, Etsy, we did everything we could to optimize that really well. So we knew kind of what worked. And then I wanted to have our own website because I thought really that's how we own the sales, and we can sort of do our marketing, release our marketing brains on that. And so I built a Shopify site, which is sort of highly recommended. I love Shopify, and really started to focus on that. And then we hired first team members to sort of support in that, and also the support with the packing of orders and things like that. And sort of just, we're growing really organically, but consistently. We're always focused on, okay, what's next, how we can do better, and, where are our customers and what do they want?
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I know your product range is so much bigger than when you first started.
Oh my
How
gosh,
how have you balanced that? Because obviously in the early days, you had such a lot to do with getting set up on Shopify and all the things around like the business side of things. How did you balance that with coming up with new products and rolling those out?
Yeah, it's really tricky. I don't really know how, but definitely with help from a team. I think growing the team has been the only way. And I've seen this with so many business owners that, they get some success, but then they get so caught up in the packing and the customer service and that it kind of actually slows the design side. And I knew that I didn't want that to happen. I really identified that early on as like customer services is, I was good at it because it was my own company, so I knew what to say, but I also knew that other people could do that just as well. So, one of our first team members was to come and do that customer service, but also upload all the products. So that whole process after the designing of the product, I was able to hand over to a team member, which meant that I could then refocus on the next thing. So I think that's been the only way of being able to do that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because are you the only person, Michelle, that does the product design?
No, I have a lovely designer called Lizzie with me. We have over 200 products at the moment. So it's a lot. And then obviously we specialize in dated products. So we have 2 peaks, academic year and New Year products. So sort of it's constant rolling of new products out. So yeah, it's the 2 of us.
Okay. But initially, was it just yourself? Is that right?
Oh yeah, it was me. Lizzie joined sort of maybe a year and a year and a half ago. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I love how much your team has grown. Do you mind me asking, actually, at what point, if you can remember, you took on your first team member?
Yeah, I think it was right after our peak, because obviously we'd had cash in the bank. We knew, okay, we've got this money now. We know we can afford someone as long as what we're paying them is going to, we're going to make where the value they bring is going to be more than that. And it was I think that's a really scary part, investing in big things like that, and specifically team members. So really, when we knew we had that cash available, but also that we knew there was enough work and enough growth opportunity for me to sort of focus on, I just felt like constrained for time. So we got someone in sort of a dual role to take on lots of different things.
The reason I asked about that is I get the sense that you've grown your team perhaps sooner than a lot of other businesses I've spoken to. And that's the reason I asked that, because I find that really interesting, because I think it can be really tempting to hold on to everything yourself for as long as possible until, you're completely burnt out and you can't cope and you have.
Absolutely.
This is my experience anyway.
Yeah, I think most people go through that experience. And I think, one of the things that really facilitated is that I had a business coach. In fact, I had 2 business coaches, because one brought the other one in because he wanted the financial side. And so, I had these 2 men that were advising me once a week or once every few weeks. And it was just brilliant because they gave me the confidence. And one of the questions he asked at the beginning was, do you want to be, you're successful as a one-man band. Is that what you want to do? Just be more successful and optimize your time as a one-man band? Or do you want to grow it into a bigger thing with the team, etc.? And I sat on that for a while, because it was really easy doing it from my spare bedroom, and the income was comfortable. But I thought, I know in my nature it's to focus on growth. So kind of I was like, actually, that's the direction I want to go. So I may as well just try it, see how it goes. So yeah, but it was helpful having that feedback from the coaches.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to think about where you want to go and how you want to run your business.
Yeah, thinking, I guess, with the end in mind a bit more.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So obviously you do a lot of things because, I mean, you haven't mentioned this, but I happen to know you have a fairly, young family as well. How do you stay
Yes.
organized, Michelle, with like, running
Oh,
the business and then your family life? How do you
I'd
get everything
love to
done?
say we're very organized. I have three kids. I've got two older girls and a little guy who was born a couple of years into the business. I don't really know how, but a lot of the things that I designed for myself first, because I know I need all these tools to stay organized. I've got an ADHD brain, so there's a million things going on. So I have always been a list person that needs to get things down. And one of the things I use religiously every week now is my weekly planner. And I take the information from my work calendar, from home life, from birthdays, from everything, and I put it in this weekly planner. I do it on the weekend, so I know what's going on. And without that, if I ever skip a week, I'm totally lost, and everyone's lost. I put the meals on there and everything, and I guess that's really that glues it all together.
Oh, that makes sense. And it sounds like a lot of the products you're creating is it fair to say a lot of them are products that help you and they just happen to help a lot of other people? Is that where the idea comes from, really?
Yeah, it almost always come from, I need this in my life. So, and then kind of we work our way out from there. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's brilliant. Let's talk a little bit about sustainability, if that's okay, Michelle, because I know
Mm.
you have really strong values about sustainability. Can you tell us what you're doing and why you've chosen to do things that way?
Yeah, so we've become a B Corp certified company in February of this year. So that's really exciting. It's basically a certification that certifies us to the highest environmental standards, but also looking at community transparency, accountability, and those kind of things. So I love business. I love the game of business, but I'm not so fan of the impact of business in the world. So I've always thought I want to do it, but try and do it well. And B Corp is really all about business as a force for good. So I kind of want to run a business that how I'd like all the other business in the world to behave, so responsibly and kindly and lovingly. So, we try and in every decision we make, we try and consider all those elements. So kindness is really one of the most important things in our business, kindness to the planet and to our team members and to our community. Yeah. And our customers, of course, most importantly.
That's amazing. And can I ask, because I've never asked anyone this before, how do you go about becoming a certified B Corp? Is it a
Yeah.
long process? Do you have to do a lot
It
to get
can
there? I'm
be a
assuming you
long.
do.
Yeah, it is. It's challenging. So it's basically you get points allocated. So anyone can go on and just look up the B Lab assessment. You can just sign up, and then there's a whole bunch of questions that they use to give you points. And on average, most businesses will score about 50 points, sort of without doing anything. But you need 80 to achieve the B Corp status. So they look at 5 areas of the business, including environment, your workers, your community, and so yeah, it's just putting a lot of stuff in place to make sure that you have those points and also that you continue working towards improving what you're doing. So you can just log into the assessment and get familiar with the process, and then there's loads of like local groups that you can join. We were really lucky to there's a really active community here in Cornwall where we're based. So we've been on events and we were accepted on a program called B23 that led us through the whole process, which was really helpful. So if you can get outside help, it's great. It's a lot around policies that you have in your business. Your supply chain is really important, and really understanding where your product, if you manufacture, obviously a service business is different, or and businesses get points in different kind of businesses get assessed in different ways. Obviously, we create products, so that's important, the supply chain. But yeah, so anyone can go in and have a look. Yeah, there's a lot of information available.
Well, that's brilliant. And I assume you provide evidence as well for everything you're doing.
Yes, yeah. There's a lot of there's when you've finished your assessment and you say, okay, I'm ready, you can see how many points you have, and then they'll assign an assessor to you, and they'll walk you through and see and just check that everything's accurate. And yeah.
Oh, amazing. And could you want to tell us some of the things that you're doing? Because honestly, never be shy. It'd be great to hear some examples of some of the things you're doing that helped you get that status.
Yeah. So, one of the big things is that we produce everything in the UK. That's one of our brand promises, and we source as local as possible. So that footprint, lowering that, but also investing in our local community and our local economy is really important. The other thing, we only print on recycled paper. So those are kind of our two brand promises. We're also a plastic-free company, so our warehouse is completely plastic-free. We also speak with our suppliers. We always know what their environmental credentials are and make sure that they're doing the right things, like using the right energy supply and things like that. And then we've also, for example, one of the things we implemented was we became a living wage accredited organization. So we always pay at least the living wage set by the Living Wage Foundation. Lots of things we do, volunteering. Lots of in all areas of the business.
Yeah, it definitely does sound like you're doing a lot. And another question, if you don't mind, is when you were expanding. So you mentioned when you had your first products printed, you went to a local printer and got them printed. How was it scaling from that element? Because I assume that as your range gets bigger and you get bigger, are you still working with the same printer, or are you having to look for other people to work with? And do you have to source your own paper and ink? And especially now with the thought of having these credentials as well, I guess it makes, a lot of thought has to go into everything.
A lot of thought goes into everything. And sometimes the decisions we have to make are not the most obvious ones. Sometimes price is not the main driver, and that's okay. We still work with the first printer I ever went to, and we've become amazing. One of their biggest customers, and they're growing with us. They've just bought some great equipment just to be able to supply some of our products. So that's really exciting to have been able to grow with them. But we've also had to go to others because different printers specialize in different kinds of products. It's good also to spread your supply chain out a little bit. And actually, we've just taken on in December, so a few months ago, we've taken on a product sourcing person / buyer. And that's brilliant because actually sourcing products, it takes up so much time. And getting, the right pricing and the right sustainable credentials and stuff. So we're not yet at the point where we're buying our own paper, but that's certainly something we could be doing as we grow. Yeah. So a lot to think about developing products for sure.
Definitely. And I'm also thinking, as you're talking and about your team as well, I guess there's also a lot to think about when you're bringing people in terms of what role does that person need to fulfill and how does that fit in with the team you already have?
Yeah, that's taken a lot of thinking around it. So I should say that I run the business with my partner, Angus, my life partner. And that's brilliant. He came on board a couple of years into the business full time. He's always been sort of by my side. But we're able to share on that. And earlier this year, we went away for a night and just really sat down and thought, okay, what do we need? We wrote down everything that needs doing in the business and sort of allocated it under everyone's name and gone, okay, and these are the things that need doing, but we don't have anyone to do them. And they mainly were things that kind of ended up on my plate, but then didn't happen because of time limitations. So now we've just hired another person to help with marketing. So we kind of slowly, gradually building sort of a team to take on everything that needs doing. So Angus and I can focus on sort of the bigger picture.
That's amazing. And I don't know if I've spoken to anyone actually on the podcast who's grown that, who has managed to grow a team to this size. And I know to you, I don't know if it seems like a big team or a small team, but I think it feels to me like that's a big team. Do you have any advice about finding the right people or anything around managing a team? Because as I say, I do think it's a struggle lots of us have, where we leave it almost too late to find someone, and then it's not always as well thought through as it could have been, perhaps.
Yeah, I think it's really challenging, and we definitely didn't get it right the first few times. So I've really kind of, first of all, writing a really clear job description, even if it's just for yourself to start, write down every little thing that you think this person should take on, and then see how it can work together as a job. And then I've sort of built this hiring process, which has become really important to our process. So we basically do a Google form. So all the applicants fill out the same questions, and they sort of automatically, in a spreadsheet, we get rid of their names, because part of B Corp is also to sort of hire without discrimination. And so we get rid of the names, and then we just look at people's answers to these questions. And the questions, it's so important to ask the questions that mean something to you and your business, and really just ask everything. And so that's been one of the best things, because you can compare people's answers and go, oh, actually, yeah, that looks good, or that person might not be quite fitting. So rather than letting them decide what they say, you decide. So that's been a really great way of hiring them. And then in interviews also, I've asked everyone exactly the same question. I explain in advance, this is how we do it, so that you can really give them a fair hiring process, but also just really to get a good, clear idea. And then one of the key tricks also is, when I hire someone, I always, in the final few, when I'm talking to people, I always ask them to do a task related to the job, and then also ask them I give them some feedback on it, and then I see how they respond to that feedback, because these are people you spend every day with, and so much time. So when you can have a good open communication, for me, that's really important. So yeah, that process has been really important, and we just have a brilliant team now. I'm so lucky.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I think that sounds like a really good process, and it sounds like it's really important to think about the person and their character and their values, as well as perhaps their experience, because I'm sure you've experienced that you can find someone who on paper can do the job to a really good level, but perhaps if the values don't quite fit, or personalities. Yes. So it sounds like your process looks at both aspects.
Yeah, it's really important to identify what's important to you in a person that you're going to spend all this time with. And I know it feels crazy. Every day we're still like, oh my gosh, how did this happen? How are we 8, including us? So 6 others. And then we have a few freelancers we work with on other stuff. But, I think it takes some real, it's some balls to do it. I should say that. It's really scary investing in this, but I think it's been so the right thing for us, and having other people also to bounce off, and just, if you can hire people who are just better than you, that's also a really great trick. But yeah, it's been amazing, but also really scary, but just quite a ride. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see. And one last question on this, because I think this will also be a useful thing for people to consider, is at what point do you know, okay, I could find someone else to do this, whether it's a task or a specific job? Because I think that's always the thing as well, isn't it? Especially when you've been doing everything yourself and you're making maybe your first or second hire. It's okay, who am I looking for? What exactly is this job? What am I outsourcing? Do you have any thoughts on how to determine, okay, this is what the job will be, or this is my priority for outsourcing?
I think if you are leaving opportunities on the table because you're too busy uploading products, or packing orders, or doing all that stuff that you're doing in the business, but there are opportunities to grow. So maybe you're on one platform but not yet on another, and your one platform is doing well, and if you went on the other one, you'll also do well. So as long as there's opportunities that you can make the most of in that time that someone's taking off your plate, I think that's the right time. And if you know that those opportunities are going to bring in the finances,
that's helpful. So I guess it's a case of looking at what you're doing that you don't necessarily need to be doing. Because I think all of us fall into the trap of doing something because we're the person that does it or has always done it.
It's really hard to let go of it, and to keep your own stamp on it. You want to, it's really hard to let go of that. But we use Trello, for example, and we put all our operating procedures in there. So everything we write in there is how we do it. And so, for example, for customer service, we have a really clear guideline. We're always nice to people, regardless of what they're writing. We're always there to serve them. If they're unhappy, then we've done something wrong and let's fix it. And that, and sort of just sharing those templates and just making things as easy as possible to do in the way that you would do it yourself.
That's really helpful, actually. So I think even just writing down what you do and how you do it is something that a lot of us could probably benefit from.
Oh, yeah, especially if you're not doing things all the time. We have a board on Trello that's just called How Stuff Works. And we just, every time you do something, if you've done it for the second time, I always say, if you've done it for the second time, there should be a guide on how to do it so that someone else can do it when you're not there.
You do sound incredibly organized, I have to say.
I think it's yeah, without it, my brain is so unorganized that I need the organization tools to keep it organized somehow. Yeah.
I think it's working. So I have one final question, Michelle, which I ask all of my guests, which is, what would your number one piece of advice be for other product creators?
Yeah, I think pricing your products well is one of the most important things. So when I first got my calendar and I showed it to my friend who had a retail store, and I said, well, what would you sell this for? Because she was exactly kind of the target audience that I wanted to hit. And she said $17.95 or something like that. And I thought to myself, my God, no way anyone would pay that. But then I thought about it and I did go a bit lower. But because we priced it well and we thought about the wholesale pricing, because initially we weren't doing wholesale. Now we have gone into wholesale. We're selling to major organizations, and we've got major American companies reaching out to us. And, without having that right pricing in place, we would never have been able to do those margins for wholesale. And, we see there's a lot of brands that do a calendar now and again, lovely artists and stuff. And there was one locally and it was priced so low and it was such a beautiful calendar. And I know what pricing is for calendars because we've spoken to almost every printer around. And I was like, how have they done this? But they're just underpricing themselves, which means that they're not going to last. They're not going to survive. And they're making a beautiful product, but, and then it undercuts us, which is, fine, where, everyone is allowed to put their product out there, but it's a lose-lose for everyone if you don't price well, and particularly for yourself. So yeah, that's my biggest tip.
That's brilliant advice. Thank you. And I've definitely seen that as well, where you get into the people will price for, to be competitive. But as you say, that's not always the best long-term strategy.
It's a race to the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah. And as you say, it really harms everyone because then, I've seen, so I specialize in helping people sell on Amazon, as you know, and I've seen this where someone will lower their price and then everyone else lowers their price. And then, and it just doesn't work out well.
No, pricing is one of the hardest things because, we all have so many biases around prices and, we're up against some of the major, M&S, and every store sells some of the things that we do. Obviously, hopefully we do them better, but we can do them better because we price for them. We print locally. They're recycled paper. They're, and it costs us more because we're not printing in China. But luckily, people are happy to invest in it.
Yeah. And I think being confident in your price is really key as well. And it sounds like you are, because I think having pricing your products and getting the price right, but then also standing by that and saying, this is a fair price, this is what this should be priced, is really important as well, because it can be tempting if maybe sales aren't where you want them to be to think, oh, maybe I'm too expensive. But I think there are people who are looking to purchase in different price brackets. And I think it's just about...
Definitely. As long as you're offering the right quality with it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love a bargain, but I think, for everyone in the long term, you're not going to last if your prices are too low and you can't afford to do all the things you need to do. So, yeah.
Well, that's brilliant advice. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening right to the end of this episode. Do remember that you can get the full back catalogue and lots of free resources on my website, vickyweinberg.com. Please do remember to rate and review this episode if you've enjoyed it, and also share it with a friend who you think might find it useful. Thank you again, and see you next week. If you've been inspired to start a podcast in 2024, I really recommend my podcast host, Captivate. Captivate were my top pick when I started podcasting 4 years ago because of how easy it was for a complete novice like me to get started. I've stuck with them for the last 4 years because Captivate is still really simple to use. They keep adding great new features like the ability to share ads like these, and they've just been really reliable. So when you're ready to start your own podcast, you can use the link in the show notes and get a free 7-day trial with Captivate.